Hi again, everybody. Welcome to Inside Golf. I'm Harry Donahue. When you look at a list of great amateur golfers from the Philadelphia area, this gentleman whose photograph is behind me is at or very near the top of the list. O Gordon Brewer Jr. Several times he's won club championships at both Huntington Valley and Pine Valley. And at Pine Valley, he's a 5-time winner of the prestigious Crump Cup. Not to mention the fact that he's been involved in dozens of USGA national championship events. He's won 2 of them, the senior amateur twice. In addition, he's a 2-time winner of the Philadelphia Amateur Championship. He's a member of GAP's Hall of Fame, not to mention that here we are at the Brewer Room at Huntington Valley to conduct a sit-down interview with the man himself. You'll meet Gordon Brewer next, right here on Inside Golf.
Inside Golf is presented by Destination Montco Golf. 54 courses, 300,000 yards. Check them out at montcogolf.com. By the First Tee of Philadelphia. The First Tee helps young men and women become better golfers, but most important, better people. Get involved. Visit thefirstteephiladelphia.org. By the Golf Association of Philadelphia, GAP, celebrating amateur golf since 1897. By Jersey Man Magazine, it's a Jersey way of life. And by Philly Man Magazine, bringing it to Broad Street. By the Haverford Trust Company. Quality is in our DNA. And by Inside Golf's partner since 1998, the Philadelphia Section PGA, experts in the game and business of golf. Take time to thank your local PGA golf professional.
When I got back from the Gulf War, I was afraid to leave my house for 5 years. Clearview Hope and Renee Powell saved my life.
When I started Clearview Hope, I wanted to do all that I could to help our nation's women military veterans.
Renee, with golf, you have empowered all of us, and we just cannot thank you enough.
The best stories end in thanks. Share your story at ThanksPGAPro.com.
This season, stay up, stay out, stay wild, stay cool, and stay together, because you don't have to go far to get away. Book your stay and receive offers of up to $250 at these premier attractions.
Welcome back. Inside Golf now continues from Huntington Valley Country Club's O Gordon Brewer Jr. room with none other than O Gordon Brewer Jr. Gordon, thanks for having us.
Harry, thank you for having me.
Well, it wouldn't be, I guess, a Philadelphia golf show until we finally had a man who has had as much to do with great competitive golf on and off the course than yourself. It all began for you back in your native North Carolina in terms of playing golf. You were at Guilford College. You actually went there on a partial basketball scholarship, correct?
Yes, I started out playing basketball, and after 2 seasons of spending more time on the bench than I did on the court, decided that wasn't something that I necessarily wanted to continue. And I did make the golf team the last 2 years. Was introduced to the game through a driving range. No one in my family played golf. And I began to hit some balls with the driving range clubs. I had no clubs, and absolutely immediately fell in love with the game.
Did the game come easy to you?
I don't know that it comes easy to any of us, but I loved the game and was willing to put the work in that was necessary to develop some level of skill.
So how long was it before you started to post some significant scores and realize, I may have a little bit of a future playing this game of golf?
I'm not sure that I ever really thought of what, the future might be with the game, but I enjoyed the competition, I enjoyed the camaraderie, I absolutely just loved the game. And
so let's move forward in your life. You came to Philadelphia early 70s?
1960.
1960, okay.
January of 1960, I graduated mid-semester.
And you had a job with a bank here in the Philadelphia
Yes,
area.
Philadelphia National Bank as a trainee.
Okay, and you had a young wife with you, a young lady you met at Guilford College, but she was from the Philadelphia area.
Philadelphia area, from Merchantsville, New Jersey. Yes, we met at, she was a co-ed at Guilford, and had our first apartment in Glenside, Pennsylvania, just down the road from where we are sitting today. That was our start.
That was your start. Let's talk about your first club membership, Old York Road, the old York Road in Jenkintown.
The Old York Road, back when it was in Jenkintown, I was very, very fortunate to receive a junior membership there at fairly nominal cost because I couldn't afford anything that was, significant. And very interesting, my wife and none of her family played golf when we were married. And I got our first set of clubs from the head professional there. I remember his first name was Pete. I've forgotten his last name. But he sold me a set of Patty Berg used clubs. They were in excellent condition. And he charged me $15 for the full set of irons.
Full set.
She played with those irons for years.
Can't even get a sleeve of balls in most pro shops for
Isn't that
$15
true?
today. So then you made the move here to Huntington Valley. When was that?
1963, came here to Huntington Valley, and that was an era in which Huntington Valley really was one of the dominant clubs with the quality of golf in the Philadelphia region, with the Hyman family being here. And
right, Bill Hyman, of course, who lived virtually on the golf course here,
he
right
did,
across from the 8th green.
Just across from the 8th green, and played a lot of golf and got to know Bill quite well, spent a lot of time. And
Was Bill in any way, how encouraging was he to you as
was
someone younger than him, but also trying to follow almost in his footsteps, right?
He was terrific, and for Harry, I got a chance to play with some of the greats of the game, Billy Joe Patton, Ed Updegraff, Dale Maury. Got to know a lot of people that otherwise wouldn't have through Bill, and he would take me under his wing, and we'd play.
That's amazing. Then you got involved in, I guess you could say, the first of 42 USGA National Championship events. You went on to win 2 of those as a senior amateur titleist. But what about your days playing in the regular amateur tournament? Talk about that. And that stretched into the year that Phil Mickelson actually won as an amateur. You were part of the field, right?
I was, yes. That was in Cherry Hills in Denver, Colorado. But by the first accomplishment at the competitive level of the game of any significance was in 1966. I was medalist for the Philadelphia Amateur Championship in the 2 36-hole qualifying rounds. I shot, I still remember, 72 at Aronimink and 69 at St. David's. I got to the semifinals of the championship that year. And then the next year in 67, won the Philadelphia Amateur at Torresdale, Frankfurt. So that was the first, significant championship in my career. I was age 30 at that time, so by today's standards, starting quite late.
Right, yeah.
The next year, 1968, I qualified for the amateur, played at Scioto in Columbus, Ohio.
Jack Nicklaus's home course.
Exactly. And then was able to qualify and play in 17 U.S. amateurs, one of which, as you referenced, was the one that Mickelson won at Cherry.
That's quite a stretch of time. In the 90s, you were still playing against young kids.
You know what, interesting, Harry, when I was first eligible to play in the senior amateur, I was still trying to compete with the young fellows and didn't even enter the senior amateur when I turned 55. So
that means you still had a lot of game, Gordon.
Well, as I may have mentioned, I was blessed to qualify and play in 8 U.S. amateurs after turning age 50. That just shows it's a totally different era back then than today. That wouldn't happen today, but...
Well, it happened then, and how. We'll be back, continue our conversation with Gordon Brewer from the Brewer Room in Huntington Valley as Inside Golf continues in a moment.
first tee of Greater Philadelphia, where golf is more than a game.
Welcome back. Inside Golf continues with our conversation with Gordon Brewer. Gordon, let's talk about those two Philadelphia Amateur Championships. In 1967, you mentioned, was the first Amateur Championship, played at Tarsdale, Frankfurt. Nip and tucked down to that 18th hole, and your opponent that year was?
Harvey Smith, and 36-hole final, and it went to the 36th hole. And I was one up playing the 36th hole, and Harvey, I can remember, hit his drive left. And
you were right down the middle?
I was fortunate to be in the fairway, and had an 8-iron left to the green, and you know, hit it in reasonably close.
Did you have to finish putting out the hole, or did Harvey eventually concede when he knew he was out?
When he made bogey, I had, you know,
right. And it was
putt
a handshake,
nestled
and
to
you
the
had your
hole.
first Philadelphia Amateur title.
That's correct.
And then 9 years later, you go to one of my favorite courses. I'm sure it is one of yours as well. Philadelphia Cricket Club, the Wissahickon course in Flowertown, against a younger opponent at that time, Duke Delcher, great amateur player in the Philadelphia area. And that one went to the 36th hole, the iconic finishing hole at the Wissahickon course. Tell us about it.
Well, Harry, I'd gotten down early in the match and was down, again, 36-hole final, playing the par 3 15th hole. I was 2 down, and was able to square the match, entering playing the 36th hole. And I can still remember the putt, made maybe a 35-foot putt or so for birdie to win the match 1-up.
Let's talk about some of those USGA events later on. 81, for instance, you were in the mid-amateur,
yeah,
and you went to the semifinal round.
That was the inaugural mid-amateur. It was 1981 at Belle Reve in St. Louis.
Recent site of the PGA Championship.
Correct. I reached the semis.
Do you remember who you played in that semifinal round?
I was defeated by Bob Lewis. Yes.
Bob Lewis.
And,
3 years later, back to the semifinals, also in the mid-am. It was 1984. Where was that played at?
Atlanta Athletic Club. Bob Lewis again.
How about that? He had your number there.
And Bob lost both final matches.
You should have told him after that first one, look, let me win this one, I'll have a better chance in the final. Then the following year, 2 Philadelphians met in the finals. Yourself and a gentleman, a little younger than you, who I'm sure you competed frequently with all over the place, Jay Siegel.
I did, and great admiration for Jay and his record in amateur golf, which to me is, it stands at the top. If you look at his overall amateur record, as we know, you can't compare Jay's era with that of Bobby Jones. They're totally different, but in today's amateur, as we know it, Jay's record is just extraordinary.
Right.
And we were matched in the final match there, and it's one of the few occasions where both are members of Pine Valley, where members of the same club competed in the final match of a national championship.
The question begs, where was Bob Lewis that year? Did you beat him along the way?
No, I didn't. I don't remember where Bob was in that particular mid-am.
How many club championships did you win here at Huntington Valley?
I think it was 7.
Okay. And of course you were the club president. You were on the board, either golf committee chairman or some other responsibility. And in Pine Valley, I read an article where the author said you won a slew of club championships. I know an important one for you was the father-son with your son Chip, who is now CEO at Callaway Golf, and 14 times.
Yeah, we won
14 times you two won.
Father-son 14 times, and that's really one of the more fulfilling and accomplishments in the game, and when you do it with your son.
Wow. You know, the expression, this thing never gets old. I guess it never got old if you kept winning 14 times.
It sure didn't.
That's pretty amazing. And then also you've won, in fact, the senior, or the club championship at Pine Valley is named after O Gordon Brewer Jr.
Yes, when I retired as president, they named the club championship, put it in my name, which was tremendous honor.
Right. Speaking of tremendous honors, we will be back with Gordon in our final segment to talk about what he considers to be the most prestigious award that he has ever won. And here's a clue. The great Bob Jones's name is attached to it. Our conversation with Gordon Brewer continues in a moment here on Inside Golf. Welcome back. Inside Golf now continues from Huntington Valley's O Gordon Brewer Jr. room with Gordon Brewer himself. We're talking a little bit about awards and honors, and in your own opinion, the most prestigious award you received was back in 2009, and it was the Bob Jones Award that's given out annually by the United States Golf Association. And if I may quote, the award is presented to someone based on the principles of competition and sportsmanship in the game of golf. Why is that the top award as far as you're concerned, Gordon?
Well, when you have your name associated with Bobby Jones, that in itself says a lot, because he established the standard for sportsmanship and integrity of how we play the game. But if you look at the list of winners, Francis Ouimet was the first one, Babe Zaharis, Byron Nelson, Ben Hogan, Jack Nicklaus, Tom Watson, and the year before I received it, the great late President George H.W. Bush was the recipient. So it is a very distinguished award, and there isn't any question that it is the very top from whatever I have achieved in the way of honors.
You were showing us a picture of yourself and the late President George H.W. Bush is on display here at the Brewer Room. And right next to it is another picture of one of the tops in the game, Arnold Palmer. And you got to play a few rounds with Arnold.
I did. He was a member of Pine Valley, and I got to know Arnold. And in fact, we had him at our home a number of times. And just one of the most charismatic, and not one of, the most charismatic fellow that I've ever gotten to know. And he was the really greatest, perhaps, ambassador for the game that we've ever known.
Right. A little story you told me before we began this conversation involved you and Arnold at Riviera in Los Angeles. Would you mind sharing that with our viewers?
Yeah, I had arranged to play a practice round with Arnold for the Senior Open at Riviera, and he came up to me in the locker room, typical Arnold, and put his arm around me, and he said, "Gordon, do you mind if Jack joins us?"
I can imagine what your response was.
But we had a great time, and I've since gotten to know Jack fairly well because I serve as a captain of at the Memorial Tournament. Interesting story, when he called the house to inform me that I'd been selected as a captain, Gail answered the phone. And he said, "This is Jack Nicklaus. I'd like to talk to Gordon." She says, "Tell me another one," and hung up on him.
Get out.
And he had to call back and convince her that it really was Jack calling. But I've gotten to know him.
Did Gail apologize?
I don't think so. That's not her nature.
That's not in her DNA. Well, I can honestly say that did not happen to me. When I identified myself, she just told me to hold on, I'll go get him. So I have one up on Jack Nicklaus, probably the only thing I have up on Jack in my entire life and in his as well. Speaking of being a captain, you were captain in 2002 for the U.S. team that played in the World Amateur Team Championship. You told me that was in Kuala
Lumpur, Malaysia.
A three-member team.
Yes.
Who were the fellows involved?
just three outstanding amateur players at the time. The current then amateur champion Ricky Barnes, the runner-up Hunter Mahan, and DJ Trahan, who had distinguished himself. He was at Clemson then. But those three were really the top three amateurs, and they did win the World Amateur Team Championship, and that was a huge honor, and creates fond memories that will always be with me of
another victory
there together, and a victory.
And
yes.
another USGA victory. What kind of interaction did you have? Because let's face it, you were probably old enough to be their grandfather, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
As the captain of those three young guys.
Yeah, that's a good point, Harry, because different era, but mutual respect, and we got along famously, and had a lot of fun the week we were there in Kuala Lumpur, and I will say the people there were very, very gracious to us.
You are in the, as I mentioned earlier, the Golf Association of Philadelphia Hall of Fame. You were president of the Pennsylvania Golf Association. What did that entail in terms of your being president of that organization?
Well, that goes back. I was in my 30s then, but that was the first time I was really involved in one of the organizations. But Harry, I feel strongly that those of us that have gotten so much from the game, and whatever I'm able to give back or have been able to give back pales in comparison to what the game has given me. But I think we all have a responsibility to give back, to try to grow the game. I've tried to do that over the years. I served as president of the Pennsylvania Golf Association, as chairman of the J. Wood Platt Caddy Scholarship Trust Fund. That's something that is very important and was very fulfilling for me to be involved with. And then I served 5 years as a member of the USGA Executive Committee, including having chaired what then was the Implement Ball Committee, now the Equipment Standards, and, but the governing body that regulates the equipment that we use in the game, which has changed dramatically.
It certainly has, and that gives you an idea of the full life. I don't know how he's managed to squeeze it into one lifetime in 82 years. And by the way, a happy birthday to you, because a couple weeks ago, celebrating number 82. I don't know how you fit it all in. Gordon will be back in just a moment to wrap up our conversation with Gordon Brewer as Inside Golf continues.
Everyone knows the five senses.
But what if we told you?
There's more. An elusive sensation.
Coaxed out only under ideal circumstances.
We can't fully describe it, but you'll know it.
When you feel it.
We call it the ultimate driving machine.
Take advantage of exceptional lease and finance offers today.
Well, welcome back. Time to wrap up our conversation with Gordon Brewer here at the Brewer Room at Huntington Valley Country Club. You know, Gordon, as I look around and see this room and all the memorabilia and the photographs and clubs that you used through the years, and then we talk about the Brewer Cup that the Golf Association of Philadelphia has. You mentioned earlier the father and son Brewer tournament at Pine Valley, J. Wood Platt, and the recognition you got from the USGA with the Bob Jones Award a few years ago. You are fortunate not only to have played well, but to have been honored in your lifetime. You know, too often, I think, people are honored posthumously. You're able to live through this. What does that mean to you?
Well, I've been a very blessed man, and I am a man of faith. Harry, I feel strongly about the Christian values and realize just how blessed I am, and we were talking about giving back, and I've tried to do that, continue to try to do that, and try to help others, but you know, I'm a great believer that your actions speak louder than your words. So,
you know, I read a quote, and I may be paraphrasing here, but I think I have the gist of it. You said, the game of golf may not teach you character, but it will show what kind of character you have.
yeah,
I think that says volumes about the game that we both love.
I couldn't agree more. Yes, it will define the character of the person. If you want to get to really know a person well, play a round of golf with them.
And we want to congratulate you for these honors. I know there's more to come somewhere, and keep going strong. Thanks also to Gail for keeping you in your lane, right? As a lot of people would say. Where would you be without her?
She's the best thing that ever happened to me.
I will toast that as well. Gordon, thanks very much.
Thank you, Harry.
Pleasure to be here and to share this surroundings here at Huntington Valley Country Club. That's it for this week's edition of Inside Golf. I'm Harry Donahue. Remember, no matter how bad it's going for you out there, don't pick up. And we'll see you next week on Inside Golf.
Inside Golf is presented by Destination Montco Golf. 54 courses, 300,000 yards. Check them out at montcogolf.com. By the First Tee of Philadelphia. The First Tee helps young men and women become better golfers, but most important, better people. Get involved. Visit thefirstteephiladelphia.org. By the Golf Association of Philadelphia, GAP, celebrating amateur golf since 1897. By Jersey Man Magazine, it's a Jersey way of life. And by Philly Man Magazine, bringing it to Broad Street. By the Haverford Trust Company, quality is in our DNA. And by Inside Golf's partner since 1998, the Philadelphia Section PGA, experts in the game and business of golf. Take time to thank your local PGA golf professional.